Tyler Grant joining us here in studio. Tyler is an attorney, a contributor to the Washington Examiner, and a former Fulbright scholar to Taiwan. Nice to have you back with us, Tyler.
Yeah, good to be back.
All right, we've been discussing this. Previously, you thought that these protests would eventually just peter out on their own. Do you still think that that's going to happen?
I think we've reached a point where the situation has definitely escalated, where it's taken to the airport, which has hit the direct route of commerce to Hong Kong. You saw Trump tweeted the fact that the U.S. intelligence reports that China has moved a lot of military presence to the border, and it seems to be, from the Hong Kong leader Lam's perspective, that she is the last stopping point. If the Hong Kong police cannot stop and break up this riot, the Chinese will.
So you do expect now Beijing to perhaps start sending in troops. As we've said, the president mentioned that intelligence indicates that there is a Chinese military buildup at the border. Do you think that is now the next move we can see from Beijing?
It seems to be that there is evidence to say that the protesters captured and held hostage for a little while a Global Times reporter, which is a state-run or a Chinese-run newspaper, and they're invoking a lot of American rhetoric in their protests, and it seems to be that the protesters, by putting themselves aligning with America and freedom and that kind of language, are forcing Beijing's hand and saying that this is really a referendum on Beijing, and so they have incentive to stop it. Yeah.
Well, the protesters, the pro-democracy demonstrators have been waving American flags, saying that these are the kind of values and liberties that they want for themselves as well. And that, in a way, has given the Chinese the excuse to blame the U.S. for this. The Chinese have been saying that this has been instigated by the U.S., but now that you have the demonstrators invoking U.S. freedom, you do have the Beijing getting more of a case for this. The president responded to that aspect. As we showed him speaking earlier, he said that he hopes this has been something that's going to work out, but he also said, many are blaming me and the United States for the problems going on in Hong Kong. I can't imagine why. What do you make of that?
I think his tweet is what he always comes back to, which is that no matter what the problem in the world is, the media is going to find an excuse to blame it on the president, and specifically this president. And I think that he's wise to not directly pick sides,
right.
But at the same time, it's always one of these things where the president chooses to make an issue about himself rather than making it about the issue at hand, which is the fact that the Hong Kong protesters are making a referendum on Beijing control, and that this bill pushes Chinese control beyond the scope of which Hong Kong residents feel comfortable.
So, Tyler, if the Chinese feel that now this is the point where they have to send in troops, are they willing to risk another Tiananmen Square type of incident?
Well, I think they put it in place exactly with the language and rhetoric that they've been using for some sort of accident to happen. And if people get hurt, it's because they're participating in what we saw earlier, that is terrorism.
You're saying that they're going to dismiss the consequences. Will there be any consequences? If the Chinese go in, what are the consequences that they could face from the international community, if any? Because after Tiananmen Square, there really wasn't much of a backlash against Beijing.
Well, you know, there was this not funny, but peculiar phrase that people in Taiwan would say, that today's Hong Kong is tomorrow's Taiwan. And so the international community knows that China has always possessed Hong Kong in this semi-autonomous region status, but they know that Beijing's influence and ambitions are much broader than just Hong Kong. And so I think the international community knows that they want to retain control over Taiwan, or of Hong Kong, but there's not really much that anybody can do to stop that.
So do you expect any kind of intervention, if it does get to that, from the international community, be it the United Kingdom, keeping in mind this was a former British colony, the United States, the United Nations? Do you expect any kind of intervention if troops go in? I
don't expect military intervention, no. I mean, maybe some sort of international economic backlash, but I don't think that anyone is prepared to put boots on the ground against China in Hong Kong.
Just perhaps some diplomatic intervention, sanctions and whatnot.
Correct.
All right, Tyler, thanks so much as always. Tyler.